not a liberal America and
we
a
face the
conservative America.
difficulties
There is the United
of today
States
and
of
tomorrow.
America.
I still have a dream.
Some of my friends Some of my friends think that making any comparison to Hitler and Trump is over the top. Please, okay. I'll defend my position in making all those similarities, but let's review just briefly how Hitler. So, all right, yeah. So Trump didn't murder 6 million Jews. Okay, Trump hasn't invaded another country. Okay, that's not the Hitler I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Hitler who got to the position to do those things, and that's why Trump is dangerous, because that's where the similarities are. I'm not going to go into how what World War I was about and how it ended. I'm going to leave that to you. If you know, then you know where I'm getting ready to go. But if you don't know, I beg you, please get some information before you have an opinion about the comparisons between Trump and Hitler. But hear me out. I've got some good stuff here. Okay, so yeah, World War I, it was a mess. It was complicated. Not going to go into it, right? But at the end of it, Germany came out really, really bad. They had to give up 10% of their territory. They had to give up land that used to be Germany. They had to disband their army. They had to pay reparations. And on top of it, so that then, they had an imperial government. They had not really an emperor, but the guy was in charge of Hitler. Forgive me for having a senior moment here on the terms, but he was like a king, an emperor, whatever, and so that whole government fell apart, and they put together what they called a parliamentary Wehrmacht government. And one of the things that was going on at that time, the end of World War I, was that in Russia had been a Russian Revolution. The communists had taken over. They'd thrown out the old regime, and they said, we're going to be a party of the people. That didn't work out so well because it was infiltrated with a bunch of crooks. But the rest of Europe was very, very afraid of the spread of communism. So you have that in line there. And so, and of course, the German people felt betrayed because they thought, had the monarchs and the businessmen done right during the war, they could have won. And I don't know, but that's how they felt. And so Hitler was chief among those people complaining that they were cheated, that they should have won World War I. They didn't win World War I because of the Jews. That was Hitler's position, that Jewish people were the downfall, to be blamed for the downfall of the pure German people. And he made a big deal about purity and nationalism. They understand something. So they say the nation of something. A nation, by definition, has bloodlines. The common people have like a tribe. Where America, what we have here, our unity is an idea. That was what's supposed to be. Of course, there are some people, Christian nationalists, who believe that America is supposed to be a white nation. But I mean, they're a minority. They're very far off, and it's not what the framers said. Regardless of what they say about putting God in it, the framers are very decidedly not trying to involve God in our government. However, I digress. So a lot of Europeans were anti-Semitic at the time when Hitler was talking this trash, and they ran right into it. They love it. And so, and in 1920, there were hundreds of thousands of Jews who lived in Germany. But, like many minorities, here in America, you get minority or immigrant people come here. They have a different language, different culture. They tend to live together. They tend to do business together. And most of that is for their own survival, because the new adopted company doesn't welcome them with open arms. And so they tend to marry within each other, do business with each other. And the Germans, well, were doing all right. I mean, the German Jews, because they, had fidelity to each other. And of course, the German people were looking for a scapegoat to blame for World War I. And so that was why the hatred of Jews in Germany grew so much during that time. And that needed some explanation. So the German people were accused of war profiteering and subversion and this stuff of conspiracy theories, born of fear, anger, and bigotry, and not fact. So Hitler found success with this movement, and his speeches riled the crowds up, and it fed their fear-born hate. And he combined populist resentment with anti-Semitism, and he denounced both communism and capitalism as international Jewish conspiracies bent on destroying. So you need to understand something about this. Christian nationalists, this movement that's popular now, it sounds like, because you got a lot of CEOs and stuff, it sounds like it's in support of capitalism, but it isn't. Fascism and capitalism are antithetical to one another. In a capitalist society, anybody could buy a business and make it thrive if they've got business sense. But in what fascists would automatically exclude certain groups of people from even competing. And then once the competition started, they put their thumb on the scale. It's just a bunch of criminals, a bunch of con people, and they're just going to try to exploit the middle class. That's what they do. Anyway, so the Nazi Party at first was not considered serious. It was a joke. It wasn't popular. And it lost elections, and the Nazi Party attempted to overthrow the government. Does that sound familiar? Well, it didn't work. The Nazi Party was made illegal. It was disbanded, and Hitler was imprisoned. And that's where he wrote Mein Kampf, this book that all the neo-Nazi guys are so crazy about, which they haven't read, and all the liberals complain about, but they haven't read. And if you had read it, then there'd be no question about what this guy was up to and what he thought. At any rate, I've read it. Okay. So anyway, after Hitler was released, he began to rebuild the Nazi Party. And then the times of 1929 came. That's the stock market crash. The American stock market crash affected the whole world. And one of the ways it affected Germany was that German banks had, taken loans out from the American booming business. And so when the market crashed, the American banks called the loans. And the German economy crashed along with it. And of course, Jews got blamed for that too. And Hitler offered them up as scapegoats, and he promised to make Germany great again. Sound familiar? Anyway, the established parties were in disarray, and they squabbled among themselves. And in the confusion, while everybody else is running around with their hair on fire, the Nazi Party began to regrow. And in 1932, Hitler ran for president, convicted felon, running for president. And he lost to General von Hindenburg, but he won 36% of the vote. A third of the German people voted for Adolf Hitler, Jew baiting, ex-con. Yeah. And so the German government, von Hindenburg, he said, well, 30, that's a lot of people. Let me do something to win their support. And so what he did was he appointed Hitler as the Chancellor of Germany. Great move, right? So then, 4 weeks after Adolf Hitler becomes the Chancellor of Germany, the Reichstag arson fire. This kid sets a fire in a parliamentary building. And so, of course, Hitler blamed the Jews and the communists this time. And he induced von Hindenburg to issue the Reichstag Fire Decree, which suspended civil liberties, and it allowed ruthless confrontation with communists. The first thing Hitler did was abolish freedom of the press. Who says they hate the press here? The next thing he did was he disbanded all the other political parties, so he's got no rivals. Then the anti-Jewish laws were passed, at first just denying employment to Jews, but then it went further, of course. Many of Hitler's rivals, former rivals, and associates even were arrested, executed. And in 1934, von Hindenburg died. Hitler took control of the government. He had been elected to a position of power up to that point, and then once he saw an opportunity, he took it. And he didn't have to force the German people. His speeches exploited the fear and anger at the outcome of World War I and the ensuing poverty and shame that it brought. Businessmen, intellectuals, expediently and self-servingly supported Hitler. They assured themselves that it was just talk. I mean, he's just, it's just a show. He's not serious, they said. Hitler gained power by stoking grievance. Hitler accused the elected government of treasonous behavior. He created a cult of personality. He defined patriotism as loyalty to himself. I don't know. I mean, he identified a scapegoat population that could be hated, call them vermin. Hitler told constant, methodical, incessant, egregious, ludicrous, and shameless lies until the lies went unquestioned. And reality was defined by whatever came out of his mouth. Hitler went on to start a world war and murder millions of people because that behavior had gone unchecked. See any similarities? I rest my case.